Now from Atlanta News First Plus, this is Sports Tonight.
Welcome into Sports Tonight. Emily Gagnon here, along with, I'm going to say it, Ellie. My favorite Ellie.
Yay!
Ellie Parker in the house. It's Monday, November 27th. Where has the fall now quickly turning into winter gone? I got to ask you before we get started, Thanksgiving, how was it for you?
It was good. It was good. I went up to visit family and go be a tourist in Chicago for once.
And what'd you do?
I visited a couple museums and went to go see a concert.
That's pretty cool. Concert of what? You know I'm going to ask you. Who was singing? What was going on?
It was a metal band called Deaf Heaven.
Okay, metal band I can't get into, but I'm glad you did. Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I enjoyed it very much.
That's all that matters, quite literally. I am happy to hear it. And you got to see your two puppers, your sister's
Yes!
two puppers.
My sister's two
I got to
puppies.
see Ellie's sister's two dogs, and they
I
are
shared
cuties.
a picture with Emily. They're very cute.
And even though, because your sister, you were going to go to her house originally, right? Is that what it was?
Yes, and I ended up just flying to my parents' house in Chicago.
So there was a meeting in Chicago, but had Ellie gone to
I would've
her
been able to
sister's
see the
house,
goats.
she would have seen the goats. So I'm still waiting on that day, maybe Christmas. Do you have plans on doing that for Christmas?
They're coming down here for Christmas.
Well, then I don't know. We might never get to see the goats, but it brings
Eventually
me
you'll
great
see the
joy.
goats.
Yes. All right, guys, let's get started with probably the biggest story of the week. Georgia taking on Alabama in this year's SEC championship game, 4 p.m. on Atlanta News First Saturday. I am jacked. Like, I am very excited for this matchup. How are you feeling?
And 31.
Delicious. That Iron Bowl was everything, was it not?
Look, selfishly as a Missouri fan, we will get to that. I wanted Alabama to lose just because we would probably jump them in the rankings. And then 4th and 31 reminded me of the 2017 national championship game.
Oh, that's a good one.
Trigger warning for Georgia fans, 2nd and 28. Just watching
With a backup quarterback.
with a backup quarterback.
Yeah,
You know it
in our backyard.
Yes, and it was once it got to 4th and 31, I was just like, all right, here we go again. It's gonna happen. It's just vibes.
Wait, you knew? You had a good feeling about it?
I had because we've seen
He
it
had
before,
forever to throw.
Because of 2nd and 28, this is something that Bama can just do.
Wow.
You never give them, 2nd
The
and
opportunity.
long, 4th and long. They pull it off somehow.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Ellie, you might like this story. So me and Lee, who you know comes on here very often, Lee Smith, our sports photographer producer, we were at the Georgia Tech Georgia game, and we were outside of the stadium doing live shots. So we were only able to watch the game to a certain point. Then we lost everything because we were outside with the hundreds or thousands of people who were coming through the gates at that time. So, Lee went to Alabama, biggest Alabama fan I know, and that, says a lot. And the last we saw, it was 24-20 Auburn with like a minute to go. And so Lee said,
Bama had lost this game, I would be on here giving him so much
yeah,
crap.
oh my gosh. But he thought Alabama lost. I mean, we were out there and he just was like, so deflated, and he was being nice. He's always nice. He's never rude, no matter what Alabama does, but he was so deflated. Then all of a sudden, I started getting text messages. He started getting text messages, and we just both jumped up for joy, and I grabbed him and I hugged him because I knew how much it meant to him. And he was like, oh my gosh, he couldn't believe it. So one of his friends said that on 4th down, 31 yards that happened.
Ow!
Yeah, the most improbable
Auburn,
play.
What are you doing? A two-man rush? No.
And not to mention, Ellie, that if something crazy is going to happen, it's going to happen at Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Yep.
But usually it's on Auburn's side.
On the 10th anniversary of the kick six.
Yes, I know. Is Juan over there? Because him and I had a huge he is over there. Had a great conversation about it last night. He's one of our producers. He went to Auburn. Juan, are you shy?
how you
Are you
feeling?
shy? Are you shy?
you
Come on
feeling?
over here real quick. Come on over, Juan.
over.
I think it's important that we get a perspective from Juan on the 10-year anniversary. Juan, come on over. Let's see if we can get you in the shot real quick. All right. What were you doing 10 years ago at Auburn as a student when that happened? I want you to give me the story real quick. This is a good one.
I was in the marching band, and so when Kick Six happened, there's actually a video of it, of the band reacting to Kick Six with the radio call underneath. And when it was going on, when Chris Davis first caught the ball, we're like, oh wait, he can't do that. And then he kept running, and we're like, no, he can do that. And so we were all just jumping around, pushing each other, like going crazy. And then when he scored, our drum major was like, oh, you have to, like, it's time to play the fight song. And I'm like, I'm not trying to play the fight song right now. I'm just trying to celebrate. Like, this is crazy that this just happened. And so you just see us all trying to play the fight song, but, like, full disclosure, I may or may not have been playing the entire time.
I'm calling you out here, aren't I?
You wouldn't know that I wasn't playing unless you were standing next to me.
And let me ask you before you leave us, which that is a tremendous story, Juan. I love that story so much. And obviously, I brought you on here today. But what were your feelings Saturday as you were watching that game? How hard was that on you?
Heartbreaking, because we had the game won. We should have won. But in true Auburn fashion, it wouldn't be an Auburn game if it doesn't rip out your heart. So.
Oh, poor guy.
Until next time.
Until next time. But it was a good game, right? It lived up to the hype.
I didn't watch until the last 2 minutes.
Well, that's all you needed.
I'm bad luck. So.
Spoken like a true fan.
When I watched the game, of course, that had to happen.
Juan, we wish you luck, okay? We really, really do. And wait, do you cheer for Alabama or Georgia this upcoming weekend? Or do you just not care?
I'm just going to stay out of it.
Okay.
If
all right.
both could lose, that'd be great, but it's not going to happen.
So you can't, your hatred runs that deep. You can't even pick one.
No, I would prefer Georgia to win
over
Alabama.
Okay, that was probably the right answer on this show. Cool. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for calling you out like that. I'm so glad you were sitting at your desk. All right. Juan Price, everyone. Ellie, I've done that to you before, haven't I? We just kind of bring people on.
I always love it when we have just
connections.
Random cameos and.
Not to mention, Juan, you did a really good job. You might be careful when this happens. We might invite you on the show more often. That was good. But yeah, no, that game on Saturday lived up to the hype, which, I think gives Alabama a even bigger push in this Saturday's game, right? They're walking in with so much momentum. Jalen Milroe, screaming on the field after that win at Auburn, give me the Heisman. And that probably wasn't the right thing for him to do. I'll admit that. But he's young. He's a sophomore. And Ellie, I think you'll agree with me when I say he has improved so much from the beginning of the season until now. And I just think that he was so full of emotion that he was yelling that, and again, maybe not appropriate and probably shouldn't have done it, but I've seen worse, and I'll forgive him for that.
I really don't care that he yelled, "Give me the Heisman." Like, of course you're going to yell something like that when you've just pulled that off, when you've just pulled 4th and 31 against your biggest rival on the biggest stage he's probably ever played on. Like, come on. And, like, Alabama's quarterback situation early this season was a disaster.
Yeah.
And now they've turned it around, and they've got a realistic shot at winning the SEC.
They do. And I guess the biggest part of all of it was the fact that now they're still in the running to go into the playoffs, right? So whoever wins Saturday.
It'll take chaos.
Yeah. Well, listen. I guess, before we move on, because we could talk about this topic probably for 30 minutes. Ellie, I want to give you a scenario that I saw online. And it is quite something to think about, and perhaps we can even talk about it again tomorrow, but I just want to put it out in the universe. Mike Conti from 92.9 The Game, he said this, and I've got to agree with what he says. He said, the committee's worst nightmare next week would be Michigan, Washington, Texas, Florida State, and Alabama all winning. So that would mean UGA would lose. So get this. I'm going to ask you this, or you can think about it and you can answer me later this week. So either the SEC would be out of the playoff, or an undefeated Florida State would be left out, or Texas would be left out in favor of a team they beat. In other words, if Alabama beats UGA and Texas wins the conference, then what do you do? Because Texas beat Alabama earlier this year. Do you understand what I'm saying? So do you put Alabama in, or do you leave Texas out, even though Alabama lost to Texas? That is a heck of a situation.
I think in that situation you have to.
You got to put Alabama in. They beat the number 1 team in the country in the best conference.
At the same time, like, Texas beat Alabama.
Right. Is that not a nightmare scenario? Because or do you leave FSU out, who's undefeated?
You leave FSU out because
you really do.
They're gonna get slammed without Jordan Travis.
I can't imagine that a Power 5 team that went undefeated and won a conference championship would be left out.
There are only 4 slots.
I know, but if you're perfect though and you don't get let in, I mean that to me would just be atrocious. But I understand what you're saying, right? And then Georgia's going to be mad because they'll only have 1 loss, and their strength of schedule towards the end of the season made a difference all the way around. I don't think any other team has played 3.
Frankly.
Top
Unless
25 opponents in a row.
Gets just annihilated. I think they get in even if they lose.
If they lose. Yes. So you'd have a 1-loss Alabama, a 1-loss UGA. You'd have a 1-loss Texas, Florida State, Michigan, and Washington all undefeated. Like, what do you, I mean, that's going to, the committee is going to have some explaining to do. You like Washington?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. But isn't that scenario? That's a nightmare scenario.
I mean, the nightmare scenario is Michigan losing to Iowa, Texas losing to Oklahoma State, Georgia losing to Bama.
Well, to me, I would put Georgia and Alabama in.
Just upsets galore.
Yeah, I mean,
which Iowa has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever and drag Michigan down to their level.
And I was good on defense.
A 6-3 Big Ten championship.
Oh my gosh, well, that sounds like another nightmare scenario to me. But good thing I'm not on the committee, though. I would love to be. That would be just to be in that room and just to listen to the guys and gals.
Oh, it would be a dream.
I mean, yeah, it really would be. Before we stop talking about this, because again, we could talk about it for a half an hour. Today, head coach Kirby Smart compared Milroe to Lamar Jackson. He was actually asked, like, would he ever compare him to Tim Tebow? And he was like, no disrespect to Tebow, but no, I'd compare him to Lamar. And he even said he's bigger than Lamar, faster than Lamar. Yeah. Just tackling him is what's so hard, because he can just take off and he doesn't slow down at any point. Yep. So you're going up against a true dual threat quarterback who really has nothing to lose at this point, especially after that Auburn win. So
who pulled off 2nd and 28? Yet another dual threat quarterback in Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. And again, it's the teacher against the student. And I think you and I, was it you that we were saying, like, when was the last time that Alabama had a team that beat them 2 times in a row? Like, I don't know that. And Lee didn't know that either.
Ole Miss in 2015-2016 when Ole Miss upset them twice.
With Hugh Freeze?
Yes.
Okay, and who was that quarterback that I'm trying to think? Was it split?
Chad Kelly?
Was it him back-to-back years, or was it Bo Wallace and then Chad Kelly? I don't know, but we'll have to look that up. It just doesn't happen very often against Saban, but it'll be a fun game, a fun atmosphere. So, get your popcorn out. We'll continue to talk about this all week, but I am so excited, and I do feel like the 2 best teams in the conference are facing off, which leads us to our next topic. You might not think UGA is the best team in the East, even though they did beat Mizzou, so they have the right to play Saturday. But we're going to talk about our biggest SEC surprises of the season now that the regular season's over. And I'm going to give you the mic, Ellie, because I know you want to...
Mizzou, let's go!
See, I knew you'd want to get started with the Tigers, so go for it.
Cody Schrader is the biggest surprise of
that's true.
The SEC. Division II transfer from Truman State to Mizzou, was the Division II national leader in yards last year, comes in as a walk-on.
Yep.
And the guy should be in the top 3 for the Heisman. He should be in New York.
And Heisman voting opens today. I got my ballot, so quite frankly, you don't disclose anything until after the Heisman has been given. So I'm not going to be discussing anything that I think. However, it starts now. Like the wheels start turning. You start really thinking, even though you always have your eye on it throughout the season, you start really thinking like who deserves it most. Were you not surprised by your Mizzou head coach though? I mean, listen.
I was one of those people who was like, yeah, he's on the hot seat coming in. He's got because he certainly looked like he had reached his ceiling a little bit. Great recruiter, not a fantastic, in-game guy. And then they brought in Kirby Moore, and it's like, bam,
It
we're
works.
cooking with gas.
Yeah.
Lock him down for the next 10 years. I don't care. This tandem of Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator, just that trio of Eli Drinkwitz, Kirby Moore, Blake Baker, moi, chef's kiss.
We love
10-win season for the Missouri Tigers of all teams.
We love chef kisses on this show. For my surprises, and this might not be as big a surprise as I'm going to make it, but I am definitely disappointed in Florida. I really thought that they are a young team, Ellie, so, what do? You got to keep building. But Billy Napier, I mean, he might have one season left before he's sent packing. And we don't want to fire coaches on the show. We want everybody to keep their job and make their money. But at UF, you can't. You just can't, not go to postseason play. Yeah. You can't not get to 6 wins. They played so closely against FSU, but were super undisciplined. I hate when
that's been the big thing that I've noticed with Florida as well all season. It's like they're super undisciplined, and traditionally that's not been Florida's style.
Yeah.
When I think of teams in Florida that are undisciplined, I think of the U. I think of Miami.
That's right. I think everybody does. That was the first thing that I thought of. But it's disappointing, and Florida used to be, we mentioned it, the Tebow, era.
They were the class of the SEC. They were the class of the nation.
Yeah. I mean, you got to, they need to find a coach, if Billy's not the one, to come in there and understand. And from my understanding from talking to coaches around the league, around the conference, Florida is the hardest place to coach. Just given the fact that, the kind of players that are coming through. And I've been told it's just so difficult to coach there. And I believe it's, they did a study of logos. Ellie, I'll have to find it. And they went into different homes around the country and just showed logos of schools. And, of course, it's easy. You see a gator, but Florida was the most recognized logo of all of them among kids. And recruiting is never a problem at Florida because kids love going there. So there's no excuse. So my biggest surprise is just the fact that Florida's not going to the postseason. And I hate to say it. And they had a chance to beat FSU over the weekend. FSU doesn't, you mentioned it, they don't have their quarterback right now. And they didn't get it done. Against your Tigers, they almost beat your Tigers. It was, 31-30?
Harrison Davis, baby.
Yeah, and then the last, minute of the game?
Saved the season twice.
Yeah, and they played such undisciplined ball at the end. They just gave it up. Literally just gave up the lead.
17.
Yeah, I mean,
You don't give up 4th and 17.
We don't like to hear it. For Auburn, too, I know it was Hugh Freeze's first season, and I truly think he is going to find a way to turn things around in Auburn. But I would have thought...
he's normally a coach who succeeds right away.
Correct. I would have thought that they probably would have... I mean, in my mind, I thought they were going to win about 8 games. They barely made it to postseason play. At least they will get a bowl game. And what's good about that, even though people are like, I don't want to see that, if you get to only 6 wins, I don't want to see that team play, or, fans are disappointed. But that gives a young team, or that gives a coach, or that gives anybody extra practices, an extra game, which is what you need to look at now. For anybody who, barely made it to postseason play, this extra bowl game helps you for next season. Believe it or not, you get 15, 16, 17 practices leading up to that game, and then you get to play in that game. So young kids get some experience, get some postseason experience, just get to practice, Ellie, while, if you don't get to 6 wins and you get to 5, you don't get those practices. You don't get that game.
Senior, why wouldn't you want to end your career on a bowl?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Any other SEC surprises for you? We should probably talk about A&M.
$70 million.
Yeah, I knew. I was like, what else is going on? Yeah.
Okay. To hire Mike Elko of all people. Come on.
A&M, you got that money, honey. I mean, you give what's his face, Jimbo, $1 billion,
A&M
trillion dollars,
boosters have
and then
more money than sense. I'll put it that way.
And then, I mean, that only leads to how much you got to think of, how much those kids at A&M, the Aggie players, are making in NIL deals. I mean, there's just so much money there. So we'll see if he's able to succeed. He's coming back to A&M. He was once there in a different position. So, I guess kind of a surprise, too. Honestly, I thought Stoops would have been a great fit there.
Yeah.
That didn't happen, but yeah. And quite frankly, at Kentucky, you probably can keep your job forever.
Yeah.
If you get to 6-7 wins a season. I certainly believe that's the case at Mississippi State. If you coach, obviously everyone wants to win and they want to win the biggest prize. But at certain schools, the standard sometimes is a little lower than the rest. And like at Mississippi State, you win 7 games, maybe 8 max, and you have to beat, Ole Miss you in the Egg Bowl, and you can keep your job forever. I mean, Dan Mullen was there for 9 seasons, and I don't remember his best record there before he moved on to Florida.
Wasn't he the coach of that Dak Prescott team that was
Yes.
number 1 in the first CFP poll?
That is right. That is his team. And they played Georgia Tech in Miami at a bowl game when CPJ was there, head coach Paul Johnson. So, yeah, that probably was his last season there before he moved on, went back to Florida. So, there's a lot going on in the SEC. It'll be a fun year next year, even though we still have a lot to play this season. When Texas and Oklahoma are in the conference, it is going to be such a strong – right now it's a strong conference, but – the addition of Oklahoma and Texas is taking something that's chef kiss and making it like 2 kisses, okay? Because that is just...
Give me my rivalries back. Give me my Big 12 rivalries.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so Falcons beat Saints. The Falcons are back in the driver's seat, number 1 in the division in the NFC South. I cannot believe that with such an awful record...
Division sucks.
It's so bad. They're 5-6. They're number 1 in the division, but they are 3-0 in the NFC South. But they have the tiebreaker, the first place tiebreaker over the Saints because they just beat the Saints. Desmond Ridder. I don't know if you watched the game, but I'm sure you saw highlights, Ellie, because you are a sports fan. 2 interceptions. He threw 2 interceptions. That makes 8 total on the season. And I'm not talking about total turnovers. I'm just talking about interceptions.
Quit giving up the ball.
Yeah, turnovers remain an issue. You had, I don't know however many weeks to prepare for this, but he threw 2 interceptions, a total of 8 this season, and he has 6 fumbles as well. So added up, what's 14?
Turnover.
I'm pretty sure it probably leads the league.
You want to talk about undisciplined.
Yeah, so that continues to be a problem for the Falcons, but... With that being said, the Falcons winning the division is a very big possibility at this point. Big possibility. They have the Jets this upcoming weekend in New York.
One would hope they can beat the Jets.
Yeah, listen, we thought they were going to beat Arizona, and look what happened there. They have 6 games left in the regular season. And what I want to say about that, Ellie, is that out of the 6 teams, only 1 has a winning record. The Colts are 6-5, but everybody else is under 500.
One would hope you win those games. However, these are the Falcons.
Yeah, and the Falcons are under 500 too.
Yeah.
So, if you think about it, it's an issue that the Falcons are this bad, but it's also a bigger issue that everybody else in the division is so bad that the Falcons might just get away with it. And that's crazy to me. Is there anything that stood out to you in that game that you enjoyed, that you felt like, I'm going to give props to the Falcons?
Enjoying Falcons football? Are you nuts?
Yeah, but is there something that you saw that you thought to yourself, like, okay, Jesse Bates Bates continues to be a super bright spot.
But otherwise, no.
Yeah,
It's a miracle this team has the record it does.
I know. He forced 2 turnovers yesterday, though, and of course that pick 6. Nothing was bigger than that. But also, you got to give the Falcons defense a little bit of credit. The Saints never scored a touchdown yesterday. It was only field goals. I read somewhere that it was the first time since 2017 that the Saints lost in Atlanta. So it's been a minute since they've lost here. So that might be something. And quite frankly, listen, if they do win the division, obviously they get to play in the playoffs.
And then they get slammed.
Correct. But that still gives, I guess, Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot another year, I would imagine.
Maybe it shouldn't.
I don't think that it should. But I just think that it will give them, because if you win the division and go to the playoffs, usually you don't get fired for that. And based off of the reports that we had heard, I don't know, however many weeks ago, saying that unless, Smith completely loses the locker room and there's a dismantling of everything, Arthur Blank is not letting him go anywhere. So we'll see how this shakes out. Will the Falcons do the most Falcons thing ever and just
Yes, because Atlanta sports.
Yeah, or will they, continue to try and we'll see what happens. But the run game looked good yesterday. Bijan Robinson looked great. Tyler Algier, Cordero Patterson got involved. So I liked the running back rotation they had going on, which was probably the best part, other than the defense playing half decent, was the best part of the game for the Falcons. But yeah, so they have the Jets, the 4-7 Jets coming up. I'm not too worried about it. I don't know if you are, but again, you said it. The Falcons are the Falcons, so we'll see what happens. Moving on to the Bravos. I'm going to give that to you because baseball is your jam, is it not?
Okay, we're just going to do this real quick. Reports are the Braves are one of the teams in on Chicago White Sox starting pitcher Dylan Cease. Is this going to happen? I don't think so.
You don't?
Because
do you like it? If it did happen?
I would love it if it did.
Okay.
Braves need starting pitching. Dylan Cease is a great starting pitcher. One of the only good things about the White Sox. But rumor was that the White Sox were asking the Red Sox for one of their top prospects in return for Cease at the trade deadline, and the Braves don't really have any prospects that are that good. So I don't think it's going to happen. It would be nice if it did. He'd be a great number 2 behind Strider.
Okay, so you like it, but you don't think it's going to happen. That's your feeling.
Like it, don't think it's going to happen.
So, in your opinion, for the Braves moving forward, though, pitching.
They need starting pitching.
Yeah.
Desperately.
Okay. So, is there anybody that you know of, and this you could completely say, Emily, I haven't even looked, because I haven't looked, but I'm asking you because you look a little bit more than me. Is there anybody on the market or that you think that could come available that you would like for the Falcons to go after? Not the Falcons, the Braves to go after?
I mean, I would have said Sonny Gray, but he just signed with the Cardinals this morning.
See, I knew. See, you keep up with the baseball stuff hardcore, so I love that about you. I'm really putting you on the spot here.
Yamamoto, who just got posted by the MPB, would be fantastic. Obviously, you look at Ohtani for 2025, but
that's a while, right? If you want it now.
Yeah.
And that's going to start being the issue with the Braves is that, yes, their club is so young. And, baseball players, they can peak and stay high for a while. But at what point are they going to, they need to win now because these young guys that they have are so hot right now. So to me, that window of winning is the next 2 to 3 years. And it has to, and 3 years is on the way, not so good end of it. So, I think pitching has been an issue and it'll continue to be if the Braves don't obviously get better in that area. What's on your mind today, Ellie? We have a minute left or maybe even less than that.
So the Pop-Tart Bowl, formerly known as the Cheez-It Bowl, is apparently going to have actual It's actually going to have an actual Pop-Tart as the mascot. And the winners of the bowl are going to be able to eat said Pop-Tart.
No.
Yes, this is apparently going to be a real thing. Why? Why are we doing this? There are too many bowls. The Pop-Tart bowl, come on. What are we doing?
Wait, do you have a favorite flavor? I don't really eat them often, but if
cinnamon.
I did, what is it?
Brown sugar cinnamon, the classic.
I just like chocolate. So anything with chocolate, I'll take it. And I don't think I've even had a Pop-Tart, and I know we have to go. I don't think I've ever had one that's been hot. Like I've just had them cold at like my friend's house when I was young. This is the Canadian in me. My mom didn't let me have much sugar. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you all. Have a good night.